Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and in this video I want to show you a technique I developed to edit videos while you are doing the recording in Reaper. So this is actually bringing together two ideas that I showed you in previous videos in this channel. The first idea is multicam editing. So if you have a scenario where you have multiple cameras, or if you have a camera and you have your computer screen and you're doing the sort of video tutorial that I often do in this channel, or maybe if you have a computer screen and different sources of video from other places like B-rolls, images, and whatnot, you can do multicam editing in Reaper using the scripts that I introduced in a previous video. And we'll briefly go over what's going on in this video as well if you didn't watch my previous videos. So that's idea number one. And idea number two that we're bringing together is the idea of recording videos in Reaper, and that is the previous video in this channel. I developed a bridge between OBS and Reaper, and that I think is the best way to use the technique I'm going to show you in this video. So while you are recording, you can switch to different cameras, and this cuts down the editing time a lot because you are already making decisions about the editing while you are recording. And this makes things faster, it makes things easier, and that's how I can produce most of the videos in my channel. That's how I can produce as many videos as I do. I don't spend that much time in editing because I do all this work while I'm recording. And then you may be thinking, okay, but if you're already using OBS, and in OBS I can change scenes. And if I have all my inputs wired into OBS, I can sort of do that. And that's what many people do, actually. There is already a video by the REAPER blog in which he explains his recording process, and he does exactly that. While he's recording, he's switching to different scenes in OBS, and many other people do that as well. But the problem in doing that with OBS is that two things. First, you are burning the decisions into the video while you're recording. So if later you realize that, oh, I was in the scene in which I had my screen and my camera on the top, but then I realized later that I was talking to the camera for a minute, so I didn't need the screen there, and it was just, there was nothing going on the screen. I would like to show my face instead. Well, OBS has already burned the face and the screen in the video together, and there is no way to edit out and just get the feed from the camera and make it larger. So sometimes what people do, and I think that's what the REAPER blog does in many of his videos, is he zooms into that corner of the screen, and that kind of works, but it's kind of awkward. Well, if you're recording using the technique I'm showing you in this video, then you don't have that issue because you can always come back when you're editing later in Reaper and switch how the multicam is switching between cameras. You are not burning the data into the video, you are just making decisions and putting markers on the timeline, so you can always change things later. So that's advantage number one. It's non-destructive. Advantage number two has to do with my specific setup, but it may be your case as well. My computer is not the fastest, and when I'm running OBS, if I have multiple sources like cameras and multiple audio sources, then it cannot keep up. It drops frames a whole lot, because it's trying to encode everything, and my machine is just not capable of doing that. I have a MacBook that is not super spec'd out, and it just doesn't run that well. It drops frames. But if it's good enough to record only my screen. So what I can do is record on the camera separate from the screen, and I am doing the multicam editing while I'm recording, as I'm going to show you in this video. And then later, when I compose everything in Reaper, I don't have any dropped frames. My camera is recording just fine. The computer, as I said, can record just the screen fine. And then the result of composing the two is better. The quality is a whole lot better. Also, I'm recording with a camera, and I don't have a cam link to connect the camera to the computer, so I couldn't even connect the camera to OBS that way. So I'm saving myself some money from having to buy a cam link or some other interface between the camera and the computer, and I have higher quality videos because I am recording things separately and composing everything later in Reaper, but at the same time I'm having the advantages of super fast editing because I'm making decisions as I go during the recording. So that's why you would want to use this technique. Now let's jump into Reaper and I will show you how it works in action. Okay, so I have here Reaper in front of me, and I also have OBS open, and I am going to now use one of the actions that I showed you in the previous video, that is to start recording. So it started recording the audio here in Reaper, but also started recording the video here in OBS. And now that I have that, I can come here to the multicam actions, and these are new actions I am introducing in this video to insert camera switch marker at the current position. So you can see that when I use this action, it leaves a marker saying, I want to switch to camera 1, or I want to switch to camera 2. And these are things that you would call scenes in OBS. But you can see that in OBS, really, I have just one scene. That's my computer screen. That's the only screen, the only scene that I have. So I'm not switching to different scenes in OBS. The recording in OBS is going to just be the screen, and then I have the camera, and they are going to be separate sources that I'm going to compose later here in Reaper. So I can switch to different positions in the timeline, in different cameras, and dropping all these markers in the timeline. When I'm done recording, I can use the other OBS action to stop the recording, and that drops the video right in the timeline. So I already have the video in sync with the audio. Well, not quite, it's a few frames off, but I can switch that easily and sync things up, and it's probably good enough. The sync between a camera and my screen would be good enough. And then I have here all these markers, right? So next, I'm going to use the multicam convert. So this is a long name for the action. I don't even think it fits on the screen. So convert camera switch markers into camera selection items in track called multicam selector, or first selected track, or new track. Okay, so that's a long name. But what this is going to do is, when I use it, well, I had that track selected, so it did that in this track. So if I have no track selected, then it creates a new track with the multicam selector. So now what I have here is the items that allow me to select different cameras. So it converted the markers into selector items that I can then use with the multicam tool that I developed and introduced in another video. But if you haven't watched that other video, the idea is just that you can drop in a video processor into this track, and then it's going to look at these selector items with the names that are specified by the markers we left. So when we switch to camera 2, then this item becomes the item number 2. And what this is going to do is select different cameras. And of course, here we have a source of audio, and we have one source of video, and that is OBS. But I'm going to drop in a picture here just to represent a camera. So I dropped here my face as another camera. It's not really a camera, it's an image, but nevertheless, when you are watching the video, so if you have no camera selected, then it's going to default to the first camera, which is my face. But then I am starting with camera 1, which is my face. But then when I go to the other item without changing anything, it switches to the other camera. And the aspect ratio is kind of weird because my face was in a weird aspect ratio, but you can always come here to project settings and change that. So maybe you want 180p, so you can do that, and that unsqueezes the image. And then I guess image number 1 will be squashed, but you can fix that by having images that have the right proportion. Anyway, that's a separate issue. But the point here is you have now multicam, you're switching from my face to the computer screen. And if you want, you can also use another one of my actions that is to create masks. And you can drop in a mask here, and then you can create the composite that you usually see on my videos. I'm going to do that right now. So if you want to learn more about masks, I have another video, but basically all you have to do is drop in an image that will work as a mask, and you have to drop that into the timeline, and then you have to use this video processor for masking that in this case, in particular, will be mask and overlay. So you can just drop that into the item and it will create an overlay. So camera 1 is now the computer screen and my face on top of it. And that's the usual setup that you see on my videos. And that all goes to show that your multicam, your cameras, don't have necessarily to be cameras. They can be composites as well. So now camera 1 is the composite of my face on top of the screen. Camera 2 is just my face, and camera 3, which I think I switched to right here, camera 3 is just the computer screen. And I did all those switches while I was recording. And of course, that brings a lot of advantages when you're doing things You are making the editing a lot easier, but this is non-destructive. So I can always come here and switch this around. So now you can see my face for a little shorter. It switches to the screen a little faster. And you can use all the other things for multicam editing. You can watch the other video with more details, but you can very easily switch to different cameras. So maybe this is now camera 3. And that's going to show the screen as well. So you can use all the facilities for multicam editing, and you can take advantage of making the camera switches while you're recording. So at this point, you may be thinking, okay, so that's nice, but in order to be able to switch to different cameras, I would need Reaper open in front of me. And if I am doing a video with literally different cameras, that could be okay. But if I am doing a screen recording, it would be annoying to have to open Reaper to switch to different cameras. And I agree, that would be annoying. So I created 2 different ways for you to switch to different cameras. One of which is, it can be used in any operating system and in any, even cell phones really. And that's going to be a web interface to switch to different cameras. And the second way is the one that I like better. It's the one that I actually use, and that's to use keystrokes that are global. So I don't have to have Reaper open. It's like these keyboard shortcuts that I assign to actions in Reaper, but it works everywhere in the system and it switches to different cameras. I'm going to show you both. The problem with the second is that it's Mac specific. And there may be ways to port this to other operating systems, but I don't know how. So it's the solution that I'm presenting to you is Mac specific. But let's look at the web interface first. So I'm going to open the browser and go to the web interface that I developed. So now here I have this panel, and it's in my machine. It's on the same machine, and I can do things like I'm going to try to open both Reaper and this interface at the same time. So I can start the recording, and now that started the recording both in Reaper and in OBS as well. So this is recording the audio, and the OBS recording will be dropped here when we stop recording. But I can use the web interface to switch to different cameras, and that's nice. I can also leave markers, and these markers have nothing to do with multicam editing. It's just something you made a mistake, or you need to come back here and put a B-roll or whatever. You can just add a marker to remind that you need to come back here while you're editing. And you can switch to different cameras. And that's all nice and good, but to have the browser open isn't really an advantage over having Reaper open, is it? Well, that's why I said that you can do this on the phone as well, because you can have your phone along with the computer when you're recording, and then you can use the phone to switch to different places, to different cameras, because a phone can open a web interface from Reaper just fine. So here I have my phone, and I have the web interface open on the phone, and I can switch to different cameras. So you can see that when I tap here on switch to camera 2, that is adding a marker here in Reaper on my computer. So I can use the phone. I don't have to have this browser open. I can close it. I can open Reaper in full screen, and I can switch to different cameras. I can add markers for editing, and I can even have Reaper just completely minimized and OBS minimized as well. And then I'm just doing my thing. I'm doing the recording. I am talking about the things I'm doing. And if I need Reaper open, by the way, if I need to do something in Reaper, maybe I am doing a Reaper tutorial, then that's easy to do. You just have to open a new instance. What is the action called? Spawn new instance of Reaper. And that is a completely separate and independent Reaper instance, and you can do the recording in Reaper in one instance while you are doing things in Reaper in another instance. So maybe you are showing off some recording tips or whatever. You can do that while recording in Reaper using different instances. And you can have the browser open in your phone and Reaper recording but minimized, and you can switch to different cameras. So I'll switch to camera 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just doing my thing and switching cameras and adding markers. And then when I go to Reaper, I will see all the marker items there. And of course, when I stop recording, which I'm going to do from the phone, I'm going to stop recording now. So it stopped recording in Reaper and in OBS, and it dropped here the OBS video down below. And I can do the multicam, convert, camera switch, markers, And then I have all these markers right here on this track. So I did the editing while I was doing the recording, and I did all that using the phone. So that's option number 1. And I want to show you how to install this, how to set up this option. So later in the video, I'm going to show you the installation instructions for the whole thing. But once you have this installed, what you have to do to configure it is come to the Reaper Preferences, come here to Control OCS Web, and add a new web interface, like so. And you can switch to different ports. I am using the default port, and then you will have here an interface that is the LIAFAC OBS multicam. So that's the one you want to use. And when you click OK, usually Reaper doesn't work the first time, so I have to click OK and restart Reaper, and then it will go. In any case, you can just go to this URL provided by Reaper, both on your computer, but more importantly, on your phone. And when you do that, you will have control over multicam editing. So that's option number 1. Now let's talk about option number 2, which is the one that I prefer, but it is not portable. It doesn't work in other operating systems. And yeah, it has advantages and disadvantages. Anyway, the idea here is to use a tool called Hammerspoon. It's an automation tool for macOS. It gives you key bindings and other functionality. You can control the system in very powerful ways. But one of the ways in which you can control the system is with this thing that I developed that uses Hammerspoon to control Reaper with global shortcuts. So let's see how that works. So I have the script already loaded, and I'm going to show you later how to load it. But the way it works is super simple. So you have this keyboard shortcut, Command-Shift-2, and that starts the recording in both Reaper and OBS. It doesn't matter if you have Reaper open or not. And then you have these other keyboard shortcuts, Control-Option-M to add markers, and Control-Option 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so on to add markers from 1 to 10, and then the QWERTY row of the keyboard, key, W, E, R, P, and so on, add markers up to camera 20. So you have 20 cameras to work with. And this limit is somewhat artificial. If you had more cameras, you could add more cameras to the scripts. It wouldn't be too hard, and I can show you how to do that if you're interested, but it's advanced, a super advanced thing. I don't expect anyone to have more than 20 cameras. Anyway, so you can switch to different cameras, and you don't need Reaper to be open in front of you. So I can minimize Reaper, and OBS is already minimized. So I am just doing the recording. I am talking about something else, and I can do things like Control-Option-M, and that's going to add a marker. And I'm going to switch to different cameras here so you can see all that in Reaper as well. So I switched from camera 1 up to camera 10, and you can see the marker here and the switches to different cameras over there. So it's recording everything that I'm doing. I'm just tapping the keystrokes, and Reaper is doing its thing. It's recording all the camera switches and whatnot without me having to have Reaper open in front of me, and without having to have a separate device. That kind of complicates the recording, but it's an option that you have as well. So if you want to set that up, there is also a link in the description below for the Hammerspoon script that you need to install. So it's a simple script that you have to copy and paste somewhere. So you can open Hammerspoon, and if you install this for the first time, you can come here to Preferences and do all the things you need to do. And there is also a way for you to open the Hammerspoon configuration from here, but I don't remember how to do that. So instead, you just have to open the Hammerspoon configuration and paste the script that I'm sharing with you in the description below. You just have to paste that into your Hammerspoon configuration, and it will do the right thing. It will control OBS from distance. You still have to have that web interface I showed you before. You still have to set that up because I am controlling Reaper through the web interface using the Hammerspoon script. And now finally, one last thing that I want to mention is how to install all this if you are new to my videos and to my tools in Reaper. So there is a link in the description below for an URL that you need to come here to Repack and import repositories and paste it. If you don't have Repack installed, in the description that is below in the link, you will find a Reaper blog video showing you how to install Repack. And that is just a way for you to install extensions from other developers, including myself. So you just paste that URL here and you will install all my tools. And if you have already installed my tools before, you need to synchronize packages to get the latest versions. And you should see all these new actions show up here in your actions menu. For instance, the multicam convert camera switch markers into camera selection items and tracks and so on and so forth. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. That is how you can install and configure everything, and you can record in Reaper while editing, doing the multicam thing. I think it's super powerful because it's flexible, non-destructive, and at the same time it is productive. You can make a lot of videos really fast using these techniques. Anyway, I hope you find this useful, and if you did and you wanted to support the work that I do, now I do have a Patreon account and I do have a PayPal account. They are linked below. And some people asked me because they wanted to support the channel. So that's what I did. I created an account. I hope you like the things that I do. I hope you find them useful and you create something, and you can even send the things that you create to me because I always find it amusing to see the things that you create using my tools. Thanks for watching this. Make sure you subscribe because I have more Reaper stuff and programming related stuff coming up soon. I see you on the next one. Bye.